All right, everyone. How are we doing? Just me at the moment, and Ryan has literally just popped on. I saw all the comments coming in. You were all saying hurry up, so I wanted to get the show underway. Will I make him wait? Will I make him wait? I can see his wee face at the bottom there. You can't see him yet. I think I'm going to make him wait. Nah, I won't. I'll get him on. Ryan, how are you, mate?
Doing all good, mate. How are you? Sorry for the delay. I was just getting things sorted, but yeah, how are you?
All good. All good. Can't complain. Yeah, excited. Looking forward to Saturday. We're really getting there. We're a couple of days away now, and there's things to chat about on today's video. So first of all, a big thanks to MPH Boilers and Weissman for sponsoring this video. As you know by now, if you need a boiler, it must be in your mind. We must have got it into your mind by now. These are the people you need to go to. You're getting unparalleled efficiency and reliability with Weissman's boilers, cutting edge technology, and with MPH, you know, you're getting service from the best in the business. Most importantly, a local team. So yeah, check them out. Ryan, we've got this.
Certainly still do, yeah. 6 months of access for a single £1. Plus, you can win lunch with Celtic legend Martin O'Neill. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. On the website this morning, Tony was actually speaking to John Hartson and getting quotes from kind of Sutton as well on a particular striker that Celtic should sign that's been on loan this season. Not to give too much away, but a striker that's been on loan this season, Celtic should sign permanently. Yeah, so yeah, he was getting those quotes collated. That's on the website. There'll also be a piece from me on at about 12 o'clock today. So yeah, please get involved. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Best time to do it, £1 for 6 months. You'll be there until the end of November if you sign up now just for a single £1. Thank everybody that's joined us so far, and everybody that's already subscribed is automatically entered into that competition. So yeah, best of luck to everybody involved.
End of September, we'll still be in the midst of our Champions League campaign. November, sorry, we'll probably have had maybe 5 out of the 8 games played at that stage. The Champions League fixtures go on until the end of January. Probably know that, but just in case you don't, we're going to have Champions League matches all the way until the end of January 2025, so it's that's quite exciting. Before then though, we've got the small matter of a cup final against you know who. There's been some comments from Brendan Rodgers. He gave an interview at Celtic TV yesterday, Ryan. He was chatting about a number of things, the women's team's SWPL triumph, trophy day. He spoke about the new Champions League format. He said it's very exciting and he's looking forward to the 2 extra matches. He described the mood in the camp as relaxed but focused, which I don't know, fills me with a hell of a lot of confidence if that's the mood. I don't think he could have picked 2 better words to sum up, how I would want the team to be at the moment. I want them to be relaxed. It's a big game, but I don't want them to be flustered. Relaxed, but focused and aware of the task in hand. So that's reassuring, no?
Yeah, I like those two words being put together. It shows that they're obviously controlled and ready for what's about to happen on Saturday. I do believe they're the team that are coming into the game with more confidence of the two. It seems as if Celtic are in a pretty harmonious place after winning the league, and it's all about just winning that cup double, the Scottish Cup, to make it a double, and then it would cap off what has been an up and down season, but one that's had plenty more upside towards the end of the season at the business end, as Brendan Rodgers was saying. Celtic come alive, and they're certainly coming alive at the end of this season, hoping that they can get the job done on Saturday and make themselves Scottish Cup champions once again.
He also really embraced the whole Joe Hart factor. Joe Hart's final game of his career. That's going to be a huge part of the weekend. As time goes on, I feel more like maybe last Saturday there might have been the big Joe Hart moment in general, because that was the big factor, I would say, last weekend. I think this week is such a huge game. You know, it's a Scottish Cup final against Rangers. I think the Joe Hart stuff will still be there, but maybe not spoken about quite as much. I could be wrong. Anyway, I like the fact that Rodgers, he was asked on Celtic TV about Joe Hart, and he didn't kind of shy away from it. He said there will be an understanding of this being his last professional game. we would all love to send him off into the sunset with another trophy in his collection. Joe is very focused. He's won another league title and now he's lasered in on helping the team. So, yeah, I think as much as I say all that a few minutes ago, I think for the squad it's going to be a big factor. Joe Hart at the weekend. How are you feeling generally about Saturday?
Yeah, pretty confident as is Brendan Rodgers, which is good to see. But yeah, I'm pretty confident just with the way that Celtic have been playing recently, the way that even their social medias have been recently have sort of shown a confidence in and around the side. It seems as if all the players are confident going into the game too. They're all in a good place. It's the last game until the summer, and it's going to be a long summer. Obviously, got the Euros to factor in as well, which will be exciting. But yeah, it's good to see that some of the players have been called up as well. A total of 4, plus a few ex-Celtic players too, which is always good to see. But yeah, it's the last game for a while. The next time we'll be watching Celtic will probably be in America when they go stateside to play pre-season friendlies. I don't know if there's any games before that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to Hampden on Saturday. You know, being in the press box, it's going to be a great atmosphere, 50-50 split. And hopefully Celtic can come out the other side as the victors of the game, because it would really cap off what's been a transitional season, but one that will be ultimately successful if Celtic get the rewards at the end of it.
I've heard murmurings and rumours of a friendly against Ayr United at the start of July, and I'm crossing my fingers that I'm going to be back home still for it, because I said yesterday I'm going to the Euros and I'm heading back to Scotland for a wee month, so I'll be on your time zone, so I'm hoping I get to a Celtic game. We'll see. I don't think that's been announced yet, has it? But we'll see if anything comes of that. Dennis wondering if there's a press conference today or tomorrow. Do you know, Ryan?
We've not had any word that it's going to be today, so I'm presuming it'll be tomorrow. We usually get a wee bit of correspondence. Yeah. I thought it'd be a couple of days before the final, but usually in games this season it's been the day before. Earlier on in the season it used to be Thursday for a Saturday game or Friday for a Sunday game, but it seems as if they've been doing them on Fridays for Saturday or Sunday, regardless of when Celtic play, which has its positives and negatives, but we've not had any correspondence. It's going to be today, so I'm presuming it's tomorrow unless somebody is privy to more information than me. I think it'll be tomorrow. Which I'm looking forward to hearing what Brendan Rodgers and a player has to say about the game. So yeah, regardless if it's today or tomorrow, I'll be covering it and putting the Q&As out on the website.
Yeah, I mean they're different to the. I'm pretty sure they're different to like the normal match ones. It'll be, I think, at Hampden, because that's what they usually do for the Scottish Cup final. You'll get Rodgers, Clement. You'll get probably McGregor and Tavernier as well. At Hampden, they'll get the photos, etc., with the trophy. I kind of think it must be today, so I'm surprised we've not heard anything through. Regardless, as you say, it'll happen either today or tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll get some good quotes in there. Jerry saying there's a friendly with Nottingham Forest planned as well. Interesting stuff. Helen saying that as well. Scotland squad, yesterday you've already kind of mentioned it. 4 Celtic players included. I think we expected that. As a 28-man squad, it's going to be whittled down to 26 for the tournament itself. So, you know, those players aren't completely sure they'll be going to Germany yet. I certainly think, you know, McGregor and Forrest are going to be there. Ralston and Taylor probably be there as well, but, you know, they'll wait and find out. 6 former Celtic first-team players too. Craig Gordon, Jack Hendry, Kieran Tierney, Stuart Armstrong, Ryan Christie and Ben Doak. So that's good. And I was looking to see what other Celtic players will be going to the Euros, and I was kind of, you know how like previous tournaments with even the World Cup, you know, last year or the year before, we had a number of players. For whatever reason, we've kind of lost a lot of our European internationals, and it's only Matt O'Reilly, from what I can see, that could be going, and even then that's not guaranteed. I mean, remember like years gone by, we'd have 6, 7, 8 players, and that was when Scotland weren't qualifying. I guess we've got a lot of Asian players these days. I think 7 or 8 in our squad. We've got players from out with Europe as well. Carter Vickers and Johnson will be going to Copa America. But interesting that you've only got these 4 Scotland players and potentially Matt O'Reilly at the Euros.
Yeah, that maybe shows a wee bit of disappointment as well with some of the players that maybe could have got into respective squads. I know Poland qualified for the Euros, and Mike Nawrowski is nowhere near the Poland squad at the moment. I
Yeah,
think they're going
don't
through a
think
bit
he's
of a
ever been
transition.
capped. I looked
No,
earlier, I don't
they're
think
going
he's
through a
ever
bit of
been
a
capped.
transitional period. I know their defenders are getting a wee bit older, Bednarek and Glick as well. So this would have probably been the best opportunity for him to really break through. But he's not even been quoted, and I think that goes to show you how disappointing a season he's had in general. Hoping that Matt O'Reilly
Sweden,
gets the call.
Sweden
Yeah,
haven't
Sweden.
qualified.
So even if Starfelt was still at the club, obviously he's not at the club anymore. So and Lagerbielke's nowhere near it as well. So it just shows you how disappointing. Odin Thiago home maybe to a lesser extent. I know he plays for the under-21s, but I don't think
Yeah,
midfield's too much of a problem with Norway at the moment. They've got one of the best in the world in
yeah,
Odegaard in that position. So
he's
they're
not quite at
pretty stacked.
Odegaard level, is he?
No, not
Odin
yet.
Thiago home.
No, he needs to play some games first before we even make
Yeah.
comparisons to Odegaard. But yeah, I think it's just a mixture really of players, a wee bit disappointing, and Celtic now having a focus on more worldly matters in terms of South American players, Asian players. It's a more diverse squad, not really shopping as much in Europe as what they were before. I think they will shop in Europe in the summer. I think they'll shop everywhere in the summer, to be honest, but more so in Europe, getting some players that Brendan Rodgers will like in the summer. But I think their eyes will be on the Euros for players rather than their eyes on the Euros for their own players, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe see if there's any standout players that are maybe coming to the fore that are affordable. I know there's always that worry of signing a player from the Euros or the World Cup. They play a couple of games and they're not the player that they were at the World Cup because they were on a pedestal. But that'll be the objective for the scouts to look for some maybe bargains or maybe spend a couple of million on a player that's coming through. Yeah, I'm hoping that those 4 Scotland players have a good Euros. I'm sure all 4 of them will make the actual squad. It's 28 to 26. I presume one of the goalkeepers and maybe a midfielder would lose out. So, I don't know. Would it be Ryan Jack because he's had injury problems? Liam Kelly because there's 4 goalkeepers selected. I don't know. But it's good to see that there's some Celtic representation and former Celtic players representing the team as well. Looking forward to what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks with regard to the national team. But I get it's all Celtic at the moment and getting that Scottish Cup final dealt with.
Parkhead boy, does anyone care about the Euros? Come on, Parkhead boy.
Absolutely.
Come on, Scotland. Nah, we'll leave that for a little bit later. I saw just very briefly that the pundits have been announced as well. You've seen Ange Postecoglou is going to be part of ITV's coverage. Joe Hart is going to be part of BBC's coverage, so we won't be able to get rid of Joe Hart.
Yeah, he is a good pundit whenever he's been on Sky Sports. Every time I've watched him, he's been well spoken. He's also well spoken in his press conferences too. Really looking forward to seeing Ange Postecoglou on the because he won't hold back. He's been a pundit before on Australian football. He's no stranger to how these broadcasts work. So I think that's a really good pickup from ITV. Some really good pundits on both sides. I like how they both kind of announced each other's lineup as if it was like a boxing match or a roster between the two of them. I both have really good pundits, and I'm looking forward to the coverage in the summer. I won't be going to Germany, so I'll be watching as many games as I can on the TV. But yeah, there's some really good pundits on both sides.
Parkhead boy is Irish, so that's fair enough. We'll give you a pass. I was going to say that. Eric Dennis just on Thiago Holmes saying, will he stay? Will Holmes stay? I think must have been the only player that didn't want to lift the trophy. I saw a lot of you chatting about this on Monday, so I went back and watched it. And he quite visibly, clearly on the camera, in the background as kind of players were celebrating and stuff, he was given the trophy and he did reject the opportunity to lift it above his head. Personally, I can't say that's something that winds me up. Like, I think, he'll be looking at it and he'll I'm sure have it in his head that he's not deserving of that opportunity because he's not been part of it. Now, I get people might say it's not about you, it's about the team, but personally I find it hard to get wound up by stuff like that. But I do think he's a player that will probably move on in the summer, probably on loan initially. I think you quite like him from what you've seen. I'm not convinced. I certainly don't think he's at the level we need to be starting games. But what do you think about his future at the club?
It's difficult to say, to be honest, because we've only seen so much of him. He's been, I think the longest he's started in terms of streaks is 2 games in a row, and then he was out of the squad. I've got to say, I thought we would see more of him, especially considering the fact that Hatate and McGregor have been injured at different points this season, but it's been more of a chance for Bernardo and Iwata to come into the team, respectively. I don't know if he'll move on permanently in the summer. I do agree with you that maybe a loan deal would be the best option for him. But pre-season can spring up surprises, and maybe a full pre-season could be what he needs. I know he was in early doors for when Brendan Rodgers came in. He was one of those signings that was in between Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers. It was more of a club signing than Brendan Rodgers. Yes, he okayed the deal, but I had heard his name being linked before Brendan Rodgers came through, and Brendan Rodgers sort of certified him in his first press conference, saying that he did get the okay on the player, just to sort of alleviate any worries that people had about Celtic signing the player. I think Celtic do need better in that position, and I would actually say that about Bernardo too, that Celtic probably need better in the midfield in the summer. While they sign Bernardo, it depends on what he's been doing in training. If
Would
he's
you
done
sign
enough.
him?
For 6 million, no, I wouldn't. I don't think he's a
Right,
6
okay.
million quality player. If Celtic could renegotiate that fee and get him for 3 or 4 million, then again, at the same time, it's not my money. If Celtic want to spend that money,
Yeah.
they're spending 6 million on a player, then I'd be
I-
more than happy to see that.
I
But
would sign him, just for the record. I would. So we disagree over that. Have you just not seen enough recently?
it's not that I've not seen enough. It's the fact that he's not been playing in this close season. I know that Brendan Rodgers likes to keep a tight squad for the title run in, but at the same time, I thought we would see more from him, and this especially against Rangers, because he'd had that good performance on the 30th of December against Rangers, scored that wonderful goal, and he's not really been seen. He's had a really, really stop-start end to the season since the winter break. He's been in games and then he's been out of games. I think that coincides with the fact that Rio Hatate has came back to the fore and came back onto form. Matt O'Reilly's not going to get shafted, and Callum McGregor, once he's back from injury, will automatically stay in because he's the captain. If they've seen enough in training, it could be the sort of Edward thing that he's not playing every game, but he's done enough in training. He's acclimatised that Celtic will pay the fee for him. At this point in time, if it's 6 million, I wouldn't. I think Celtic could do better with that amount of money, but it's up to the club really. If it was between the two, I'd probably sign either. But then I've been to and fro with the two players all season. So if they were to sign both, at least you know what you're going to get from them, and they do have potential to get better. But yeah, at this point for 6 million, I don't think I'd be spending that on Bernardo.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I've got doubts over whether he would be my Matt O'Reilly replacement. But then again, you're probably not going to sign a player who has the immediate impact O'Reilly has had this season. You might, I should say we're assuming O'Reilly moves on. Probably shouldn't assume that. I hope he stays. Personally, I think he will move on. And if you are replacing him, I mean, when O'Reilly signed initially, we've got to remember that O'Reilly, while he had a kind of good start in the first few matches, it's really only this season that O'Reilly's hit that top level. I mean, last season, I think his first goal came in mid-February from memory in a Scottish Cup game against St Mirren. So, like, O'Reilly's been probably 18 months. There was 18 months of O'Reilly before you got the O'Reilly we're seeing now, and the O'Reilly we're seeing now is unbelievable. Like, I'm convinced he's going to go... maybe not directly with his next move, but probably the move after that. I think he's going to go right to the top of the game. I think he's that good. Maybe pace will hold him back. But anyway, Bernardo as a replacement for O'Reilly, I'd have my doubts. But in terms of, beefing up the squad with a player who I think is only going to get better, I think it's a signing I would make, even if it is 6 million. But we'll wait and see with that. Natalie, not asking if we would sign Adam Idah, but do you think we will sign Adam Idah? I think Celtic will want to sign Adam Idah. I think he'll want to move to Celtic. It'll just come down to the fee that we can agree with Norwich and how much they want. Personally, I'm pretty confident we'll find a way to sign Adam Idah, and I think that would be a really good sign. I'd be really excited. A bit like Bernardo, probably even more so than Bernardo. I'd be excited to see what we would see from a full season of Adam Idah.
Yeah, you've got to remember he was brought in essentially on the last day of the January transfer window as a bit of an extra, a bit of a gamble. A lot of people were unhappy with the signing of Adam Idah just due to the optics fact. He was third choice. He was third choice at Norwich, behind I think it's Ashley Barnes and Josh Sargent, the USA international. So that wasn't good optics. The fact that his goal record wasn't great either, but it was all about the perfect fit for Adam Idah, and it seems to have found that. A player needs to find that perfect fit in order to thrive in a team. He seems to be a Celtic supporter as well, kissing the badge after he scored against Kilmarnock, which shows where his heart lies. Probably he's been waiting for a move like this to really show and showcase what he can do. He'll be wanting to get back into that Ireland setup and be the main man there. I think the positive for him in that regard is that Evan Ferguson has not had the greatest season for Brighton either. The goals of yeah, I know he's only 18 years old, so there's plenty of time on that regard. But he's still had a bit of a barren spell for Brighton at the moment, so it's still up for grabs, that position. I'm sure he'll be called up for the international games when Joan O'Shea's still taking the team. I'm sure he's still the interim manager of the Republic of Ireland, so he's still get that chance of being the number one striker for, especially with that Evan Ferguson injury. If you can get him permanently, if there's a deal to be made, then absolutely would sign Adam Idah permanently. I think that Kilmarnock game opened a lot of eyes, including myself. It was his turn of pace, really. I didn't realise that he had that turn of pace in his locker. But once he started going and started motoring, Kilmarnock just couldn't deal with him. And it was a masterstroke from Brendan Rodgers, because they would have been expecting to deal with Kyogo and what he does and maybe outmuscle him out of the game. Throwing on Adam Idah was a completely different thing to worry about, because he's got the speed, but he's also got the strength. And he's post-up play as well, posting up behind the defender and getting passes from behind was a real masterstroke from the manager. So yeah, I would sign Adam Idah personally, 3, 4, 5 million if you can get that, because I think that'd be your striker situation sorted. I think will go in the summer, which means a third option is probably needed too. But in terms of continuity from this season, if you can get a deal done with Norwich, who don't have a manager at this moment in time, which is another fact which could come into play, because the new manager might want to play him. If a good deal can be made between the two sides, maybe throw in a player or two there, then I'd be all for Adam Idah signing.
Yeah, reports yesterday touched on it with Tony about Daniel Kelly. I was kind of doing it in real time yesterday, so I didn't have a chance to read the full report. And yeah, Kelly's out of contract at the end of this year, so not the end of this season, but the end of 2024, which is a strange one, but I guess that's just the way the dates have fallen. Yeah, I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it. And the report saying that the key bit for me, the feeling inside the club, is they believe that there can still be successful talks. So the club are still confident they'll get Daniel Kelly signed up to a long-term deal. If he was to go without signing a new deal, I believe we would get around $500,000 in compensation. Obviously, we'll get far more if he signs a new deal. Bayer Leverkusen, who were completely schooled last night, by the way, said to be keen on him. The other news yesterday was that the centre-back pairing from the B team, Dane Murray and Lenny Agbear, have both signed new 2-year contracts. That'll keep them at the club until the summer of 2026. Dane Murray's played for the first team before against Midtjylland when we had... that must have been an absolutely unbelievable injury situation. That was before Cameron Carter-Vickers. It was before Carl Starfelt. I think Nir Beaton was sent off that day. I don't know who else would have gone off injured that day. Probably Stephen Welsh. But he's not obviously played since then, I don't think. I don't know much about Lenny Agbear, but it seems like the club have hopes for them, given they've given them a new deal. But you just struggle to see any real players coming through from the B team and getting opportunities, but especially at centre back, where it's such a kind of precarious position. Precarious probably isn't the right word, but you need someone solid there. I can confidently say that neither Dane Murray or Lenny Agbear will make a first team appearance next season. Is that a fair comment? And if so, what's the plan with them? Is it to get them out on loan? Are they just players that are going to play for the B team and no more?
You look at players that still can't get appearance in the first team. I know one of them's out on loan in Bosun Lawal, but that's the level that you've got to go to. You've got to go down to League One and
Yeah.
play game in, game out. Celtic won't take the risk with young players if they can sign an option that's better from further afield. That's just the way it will be. Unfortunately, they do have the power to sign players from further afield that will be of a better quality. The other problem is it's slim pickings because other teams will pick up on talents early doors. You know, you look at your Brightons, you look at Bayern Munich, they'll all cherry pick players, and then it's slim pickings from then on about who's coming through the youth academy. For Daniel Kelly, I'm hoping that the club recognise what his value and his worth, and that something is sorted between the two. I'm resigned to the fact that Rocco Vata will leave the club in the summer. I think
he looked totally. It might just be his persona, but he looked totally miserable on Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't exactly want to bring that up, but I do agree with you completely. He didn't look happy whatsoever. He just looked quite far away from it all, and that he wanted to be anywhere but Celtic Park, which was and Rugby Park as well.
It could just be the way he is. I mean, he's a young guy, so that may be harsh me bringing that up, but it was just something I noticed that he just looked like he was wasn't particularly happy at being there. But
yeah, absolutely. It's you're always careful to, or you're always mindful to not go down the body language route, because I think that got a lot of players in trouble a couple of seasons ago. If you just judge people by stills or by videos, 30-second videos
Kennedy.
on how they're doing it. Yeah, John Kennedy got it tight for years, I remember. But yeah, I think for these two signings, Dane Murray and Lenny Agbear, it's good to see these players sign up, and the B team are obviously confident in bringing them through to a level. Not every B team player has to make it at Celtic. You know, Man City, Ajax, etc. They'll all say the same about their good academies. If they're actually making professional careers out of their career and actually playing first team football, then they'll see that as a success. I know they're trying to make players for Celtic, but that's not necessarily always going to be the case. If Celtic can still facilitate a lot of Scottish teams with young players, then that shows the academy is working to some extent. Agbear, I've watched him a couple of times. He's a very strong and physical talent. I think he's still got a bit to go before he makes the first team. Dane Murray looked brilliant when he was 18 years old. Looked like he belonged in the senior game. He had those physical attributes. But, you know, the past couple of years have been dreadful for him for injuries. I always remember checking his Instagram. Every time I was checking, there was a new injury that he was talking about, which shows you just how bad his situation was. You know, when they're posting pictures from the hospital saying that they've got another injury, the road back starts now, then you know how unlucky he's been. He's still only 20 years old, so he's still got a way to go, but you're hoping that now that's the end of his injury hell, and he can get back and in and around the first team.
Yeah, Joey Dawson, another one who kind of seems to have had some injury.
He signed a new deal too, as well as Adam Montgomery, but I think that's just safeguarding players, isn't it?
Yeah, I hate to be. I don't mean to be negative about it, but like you look at these players and some of them may surprise you. I think Daniel Kelly, there's hope for, but like a lot of them, you just look and you don't get the impression that they're going to burst through. And I don't know if that's down to them not being good enough or us just not giving them opportunities. But you don't really look at players and think, right, he's going to make it next season. He's going to make 8-10 appearances. You just kind of think we'll be in the same situation a year down the line. Listen, if Celtic are winning trophies, it becomes less important, but I guess as supporters we always want to see our own players coming through. I mean, James Forrest, Callum McGregor, Kieran Tierney, three amazing recent examples of players coming through. And yeah, we've been linked with a Ghanaian forward as well. I kind of take this with a fair bit of salt, but Aziz Musabau plays for Dreams FC in Accra. Yeah, a bit of a left field one. Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything about this, or is there any other reports you've seen recently?
It's the first time I've heard of this particular player, Dreams FC. Is that in Ghana itself?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a Ghanaian football expert.
Yeah, I seem to remember. I don't know if it was Ghana or another African country that Hibs signed a player for, and he only made a couple of appearances. It was something like Rainbow FC or something like that. It was an extravagant name. I've not heard too much about this player, if anything at all. It was the Georgian player that I'd heard about last night, the Shakhtar Donetsk left back that was getting linked to the club, 5'8". I know we're all kind of looking at a left back's height when they're brought in, because that's been the main concern with Greg Taylor, his height and his physicality. So I think people are wanting a left back that's 5'11", 6 foot, round about that won't get pushed about in Europe, especially. He was definitely a player that was targeted in the Champions League. With more Champions League games, it's more games for other teams to target. I think a left back will be one of the first positions of priority in the summer for Brendan Rodgers. He was talking about that yesterday as well in his Q&A. He's asked Brendan Q&A. He says that they need to bring in quality in order to deal with the Champions League and the rigorous process that it's going to be, playing 8 games a season in the Champions League. There needs to be that quality. So it's all about the board matching that ambition of Brendan Rodgers, because he seems very much up for the European challenge. So the board need to be up for that too. I've also heard Brendan Rodgers this morning on TalkSport talking about the fact that Celtic tried to sign Ademola Lookman, who had an absolutely incredible game last night for Atalanta. A player that seems to have found his fit in football. He's been there or thereabouts. He's been at Leipzig, he's been at Everton, Charlton, Leicester as well, and Fulham. But Atalanta and Bergamo, he seems to have found his home, his place, and that hat-trick last night was absolutely incredible. I heard that Lee Congerton was talking about him too, saying that Celtic tried to bring him to Glasgow. It's one of those what-if stories, but I'm glad to see him doing well in his career as well. He had a phenomenal game last night, and he really stole the show against a team in Leverkusen who looked as if they just turned up and expected to win, which was quite surprising. So commiserations to Frimpong, but well done to Atalanta at the same time.
Yeah, Big Dom mentioning, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, Sam Smosditch, something like that. He's
an Ireland international.
Yeah, and I'd actually heard through a source who may or may not be reliable that there might be something in this. I'm guessing it would cost a fair bit. So that might be a name to keep an eye on. And Henrik McLaughlin and a few other people wondering when the cup final preview. I think me and Tony kind of decided last night that we'd save all our the majority of our juicy chat for tomorrow's video, and I think all three of us are going to be on, because I think we found with the last derby that it was just so dragged out, and we had 3 or 4 days of basically saying the same thing. So we kind of want to peak at the right time. So I appreciate you all kind of sticking with it. If you tuned in for pre-cup final chat today, apologies, but we'll definitely be doing that tomorrow. We'll have Brendan Rodgers comments at that stage as well, Ryan, as we say, or hopefully anyway. Hopefully we'll get some press conference stuff today, and things will really heat up. Are you excited for Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to being at Hampden. As much as I'm not the biggest fan of Hampden as a stadium, the atmosphere that it does bring, especially for a Celtic Rangers game, that 50-50 split, it's the only place that a 50-50 split would be accommodated, other than potentially a European final between Celtic and Rangers. I don't even want to think about how the nerves would be for that sort of game. But at Hampden, you've got the 50-50 split. It's going to be a raucous atmosphere. Last game of the season, chance for both teams to get a double. Celtic obviously having the more attractive double than Rangers. But there's so much up for grabs on Saturday. It's bragging rights as well. I know that phrase was batted about a lot last season, but it is true. It's the last one until, you'd say, around about August, September time. So chance for Celtic to really ride off into the sunset of the transfer window in the summer, and in a really, really positive frame of mind. Chance for Joe Hart to ride off into the sunset as a double winner. Having, I think that would be 7 trophies to his name since joining Celtic. 3, 5, 7. Yeah, it was just double checking that. I've been writing that so many times that you actually doubt yourself as to how many trophies he's won in his Celtic.
It'd be unbelievable. I mean, 7 out of 9 would be unbelievable, and the bizarre thing is that it probably isn't even that unusual. Given, I mean, Alistair Johnson has been at the club for 18 months and he could win his 5th trophy on Saturday. It's ridiculous.
His ratio to trophies, incredible. Game to trophies.
Who was a player years ago? There was a player who had like an incredible trophy, a game to, was it Kieran Tierney? Games to trophies. Probably, record, and it was something like a trophy every 18 games or something ridiculous like that. They genuinely, I mean, I know we're we're not getting ahead of ourselves, because regardless of the result on Saturday, it's still been an amazing period of Celtic dominance. But if we manage to win the game on Saturday, again, as I say, you'll be looking at another 2 trophies added on, and I just think this Celtic team are going to be ready for Saturday. The big, I think it's quite similar to the previous one a couple of weeks ago. We don't have to go far back to think of how we felt before that, and I was very much turn up expecting the best version of Rangers. I'm talking about the team and the support. If we turn up expecting Rangers to be as poor as they have been in recent weeks, then we could be in trouble, because you never know what happens in these cup finals, and I expect them to be fired up. They'll do what they did at Celtic Park and get stuck in, and I hope we have a strong referee. But I think if Celtic turn up with that same intensity and quality that we did in the derby and we did at Rugby Park, and I thought it was interesting the manager mentioned Rugby Park yesterday as being the level we need to get to. If we turn up and play at that level, they do not deal with us. And my big question is, will Celtic turn up and play at that level? What are the things that could stop us playing at that level? Refereeing decisions, something dodgy on VAR, individual mistakes, I'm guessing are the kind of things that could stop us. But I just think this Celtic team is so focused, and I think Joe Hart's final game is going to just add to the focus, really focus those minds. And I just think we're a far better team than Rangers. I'm actually, I was quietly confident last time. I'll take the quietly away this time. I'm quite confident going into this game. I'm still expecting it to be a tough match, but I just think we're better than them.
Yeah, I think I've said that is such a cliche. Celtic turn up, they win the game, because they do have the better players, they've got the better manager, in my opinion, as well. I mean, the record speaks for itself, I would say, especially at Celtic. He's a manager that's used to winning, and he's managed to drag Celtic through it this season. I know there's been dodgy moments, dodgy results, but look at the end of the season. They've managed to win the league despite their shortcomings in the league at times. Better players, better manager. The fans will be in a better mood than the opposition fans, I would imagine. Can keep it 11v11, and I mean that for Rangers as well. Keep it 11v11 on both sides. I think Celtic will win the game comfortably. But
you and Kevin have both said that this week, and I get your point totally, but still give me 8 Rangers red cards, please. I want meltdown.
I mean, yeah, if it's that and they've totally lost the head, then absolutely brilliant. But Celtic, for whatever reason in these games, I don't know what it is, but they go down to 10 men and then they lose the control of the game, particularly late on. They were really, not that they were clinging on at the end of that last game, they were clinging on against Rangers on the 30th of December. Of that, very much is certain, because Rangers were going for it even though they were 2-1 down and down to 10 men. They need to keep the control, and if they can keep the control with 11v11, then so be it. I don't know why they lose control when it's 10 men. I guess Rangers just throw everything in the kitchen sink at it. It's a weird one.
Dominated against 10 men. I mean, we still completely dominated them up until the last 5 minutes.
Is it a nerves thing then, do you think? Do you think it's
just late on, regardless of if you get an extra player, they're going to throw everything at you. I just think we need to be careful of I agree, the last 5-10 minutes of the last derby was not easy to watch, but we absolutely dominated them against 11 and 10 for 85 minutes of that match. It should have been another 5-1. It was only 2-1. But I agree that's something that I'd like the team to try and put right this weekend, and really hammer home their advantage, because as much as we've been the better team in every derby, all 4 so far, they've all only had, a goal in them. They've all been really in doubt. And don't get me wrong, if you offer me 2-1, 3-2, 1-0 for Saturday, and then we're hanging on late on and win, absolutely fine with that. But I think we're better than a goal. How do I phrase this? I think we're better than a goal, better than them. I think we need to show that this weekend. Hopefully, we're a far better team than them.
Scorelines only tell half the story with these fixtures, basically.
Yeah. Yep, right. We'll continue this chat tomorrow. As I say, Tony should be on at that stage, and you can get involved. And it will all be about the cup final. We got a wee bit of cup final chat.
About 8 or 9 minutes there, I was counting. So we did give a mini preview.
Who was it? It was absolutely raging. I'm not even going to read their name out because I can't find it. Right, okay, a final shout out for this. We've got 6 months of access for £1. That's for the Celtic Way. And you could win lunch with Martin O'Neill as well. Remember, if you're a long-term subscriber, you're automatically entered into the draw. Ryan, thanks for your time. All of you, thank you very much for your time. Chat to you tomorrow.